You've probably been too busy today to hear about the terrible accident on the toll road. A priest, a rabbi, and a minister were all killed. They went up to heaven, obviously, okay? They're in the back of the line. St. Peter comes up and says, well, gentlemen, you'll be the first to enter the kingdom today. I said, wow, the Bible's right, okay? The last shall be first. So they're walking up there. Suddenly, St. Peter said, no, I'm sorry, you're not going to be the first ones to go in today. So kind of a harsh-looking person shuffles in carrying a briefcase, and now the priest, the rabbi, and the minister are a little ticked off. St. Peter, why'd you let that person in and not us? He said, who is he, and why did he go in first? He said, well, that guy was an IRS agent, and he scared more hell out of more people than all three of you guys combined. So the tax assistance program is not designed to scare the hell out of people. It's designed basically to help people do tax returns. We've been doing it since 1972. Last year we did like 4,000 tax returns. And what happens to people that work in the program? Well, we got Bob Burke here, the 94 grad, who took the tax assistance program from South Bend to Chicago, put it on steroids, if you will. He's going to talk about an organization he set up called Ladder Up. Then we've got 3 people who are veterans of the tax assistance program from last year, and they enjoyed it so much they're coming back this year. Rebecca Wiley, senior at Notre Dame. We got Asher and Ciso, another senior at Notre Dame, and the student chairperson is Stefan Timmer. So I'm going to give the mic to Bob, and he's going to talk a little bit about Ladder Up and what he's been doing in Chicago.
Thank you. I'm going to stand up and kind of walk around. How much time do I have, just so I'm cognizant of everything?
25 minutes.
25 minutes. So I'm Bob Burke, graduated in '94, lived in Kavanaugh, from Chicago, married, 2 kids, 10 and 12 years old, Connor and Patrick. I always wanted to be an entrepreneur on a nonprofit side as well as a for-profit side. I was just a regular average student. My senior year, when I was sitting in your seats, my girlfriend had dumped me. She went to University of Michigan. I came back to I lived off campus at the time, came back to my place, and my guy said, "You're back." I said, "What do you mean I'm back?" You're like, "We haven't seen you for 2 years. What happened?" "Oh, my girlfriend dumped me." So I'm sitting here, you guys were in the earlier class, really, feeling sorry for myself and, how bad it is, poor me, poor me. But you guys have one of the best opportunities to have a huge impact on society, on your own career, because you've all been blessed. No matter how bad you think you have it, there's somebody that has it 100 times worse. You have a great education, you have a great upbringing, imagining you have a great family. Ken Milani's one of my good friends. I have the highest respect for what he's done here at Notre Dame and what he continues to do. But I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story, what I've done, and strongly encourage you guys to take risk, do other things, and really make an impact. So, first job out of college was at Arthur Andersen. Chicago office, I think there was 47 people. I still have the Observer. You guys still call it the Observer, the newspaper? And, everyone's taking a nice picture and this and that. I did the safe thing. I went into public accounting. I'd advise you not to do the safe thing. I'd advise you to take a year off. Go work at a startup. Go work at a nonprofit. You can always take that job at Deloitte, KPMG, Ernst & Young. They'll wait for you, trust me, they need you. So, graduated in May or June of 1994. I wrote a business plan to a guy named Jim Cackley, who was the managing partner of Arthur Andersen. Just started Arthur Andersen in August of '94. Business plan was based on 3 things. Walmart, Walmart the superstore, Coca-Cola, the drink, and McDonald's. So this is to start a nonprofit based on the tax assistance program. Again, start my own version of the tax assistance program based on Walmart, Coca-Cola, and McDonald's. Walmart in the sense of superstore. You go into Walmart, you can get goldfish, you can get clothes, you can get groceries. You walk into one of our ladder up organizations, no matter what your situation is, we can help you. Super center of service. You follow me? Coca-Cola, build a brand that families and volunteers can trust. You go around the world, you always can get a bottle of Coke, you know it's going to taste the same. Build a brand that families and volunteers can trust. McDonald's, the franchise tastes the same no matter where you go. So, wrote a business plan based on the 3 companies when I started Arthur Andersen, sent it to Jim Cackley. Don't go to the guy who runs the tax group. Don't go to the guy or girl who runs the audit. Go to the top. Jim Cackley was a managing partner of the whole central region, 17 states. Jim calls me in his office and says, hey, you got 90 seconds to tell me why we should do this. And I said, Mr. Cackley, the number one reason is not what you think I'm going to tell you. The number one reason is the young folks here at Arthur Andersen, when they go to the client, they don't know what to do. They keep their head down. They don't ask questions. They wait until a partner or manager comes by. Maybe it's different, but I would argue vehemently that it's the same. I have hundreds of volunteers that work at Big 4 firms, and they keep their head down. And I said the number one reason why you should do this is that people don't know how to ask questions when they're at clients. If you invest in your people through tax assistance, they're going to learn how to ask questions of a completely different demographic, different sex, different religion, different economic status, different educational status. And by doing that, they'll become better business professionals on a Monday morning. That's the number one reason why you should do this. They'll be more productive. They'll be better at their job, because right now they're scared to ask questions. They don't know how to act with a different demographic, and by doing this, they'll be better business professionals. That's the only reason why I'm going to tell you to do it. He said, sold. I don't need to hear any other reasons, but go do your job. So I started this. I took $10,000 from my, you guys have graduation parties usually. Took all the money from that. Didn't move out of my parents' house, so I saved money to not do rent payments, instead of living in Lincoln Park, $1,000 a month, lived in my parents' house. I put $10,000 in, started a 501c3, approached Winston and Strong. I knew a Notre Dame guy. It's a law firm in Chicago. The managing partner at the time was a guy named Jim Neese, who was a Notre Dame guy, got us incorporated because all the Big 4 firms were worried about what liability. Can they pierce the corporate veil? Can they sue us because this is an alter ego of Arthur Andersen, meaning we're doing taxes. In reality, it's Arthur Andersen. It isn't this nonprofit called the Tax Assistance Program. So got it off the ground. I went door to door during Christmas break of December. I took off some time during my Christmas holiday. Went door to door to every single employee at Arthur Andersen and Andersen Consulting. I left a business card and a small note if they weren't there, or put it under their desk. And we recruited 90 volunteers. The first year, we helped about 120 families at a school called Holy Family, which was on the near west side of Chicago. And we helped pay for their tuition through tax refunds, earned income credit, child care credit, and basic withholdings. In the first year, the average income of a family we helped was $14,000 per year. Do you know what it is today, 22 or 23 years later? What do you think? You're exactly right. It's about $14,500. Average refunds around $2,300. Fast forward today, we've returned over $506 million to families. We've helped over 278,000 families. We return about $50 million per year to families now. We do it through 2 programs, the Tax Assistance Program, that's TAP, and then LIFT, Life Improving Financial Tools. LIFT does a couple things. Financial literacy for the working poor. FAFSA forms, you guys familiar with FAFSA forms? You guys complete them here. And then trying to get the unbanked banked, so they don't use pawn shops, payday loans, and currency exchanges instead of traditional banks. But let me go back a little bit in time. So first year I do that, we get it off the ground, we have great success. Second year, I'm sort of saying to myself, okay, I work at this place called Arthur Andersen, but my goal was never to be a partner. My goal was to be a client. Okay? I wanted to, so I also know, hey, I'm not going to be here forever. At the accounting class that I talked with today, I asked the question, where do you guys want to be in 20 years? How many of them said they still wanted to stay at a public accounting firm? How many do you think? It's about 10% or lower. So I wasn't that smart. I told you I was an average student, but I knew I needed to diversify, right? So I went and I figured out, well, what's a great way to get the firm more involved post me? I was still there. Let's go and get the biggest clients of Arthur Andersen involved. So I wrote a letter to a guy named Dick Notabart, who wasn't even on the board at Notre Dame at the time. He ran a company called Ameritech. I went to a guy named Dick Thomas, who ran First Chicago, which merged with MBD Bank, which was the biggest bank in Chicago. Ameritech was a Fortune 50 company based in Chicago. So I went to partners who were volunteers and I said, I'm going to try and approach your client and we're going to get involved. I didn't say, can you please do this with me? It was, I'm going to go to Ameritech. I'm going to get them involved. I'd love you to come along. Come along. Not, will you please allow me to do this? No, we're going to come along. So we got Ameritech involved. We got MBD for Chicago involved. We got the Chicago Public Schools involved. That was in year 2. Then I also realized I need to get more. At the time, I think it was 6 accounting firms. I don't know the exact number. So I then started calling some of my Notre Dame friends that went to other firms at Ernst & Young, KPMG, Price Waterhouse. I think it was Coopers and Lybrand. Said, hey, I got this thing called the Tax Assistance Program. Why don't we get your firm involved? Let's get a meeting with the managing partner. You already did this before. Okay, makes sense. Let's do it. I wanted to diversify in terms of having multiple firms. I wanted to diversify in terms of getting more clients involved. So we started getting that going, and then we started to get more and more organizations involved. The Chicago Tribune at the time in our second year did a feature story on our organization. We're on the front page of the business section with like a color photo, front page. We got company, community groups, CEOs saying, hey, how do I get involved? We were in a great position because we were like, look, we have a model. We've done it before. We knew Notre Dame folks at different organizations. So we got more and more people involved. I will tell you, growing a nonprofit, I learned 3 main things. 3 main things. 1, how to motivate people without material incentive. You can't pay a volunteer. So how do you motivate people to do something which is somewhat, not the easiest thing to do? Taxes in the middle of the winter during busy season, right? Everyone's busy. Learn how to motivate people without material incentive, number 1. Number 2, how to be a good steward of people's money. That not only in terms of foundations and contributions, but the clients you're helping. The poorest of the poor need your help more than any client you'll serve at any Big 4 firm. Repeat. The clients you serve need your money and your advice more so than any client you'll ever serve in the for-profit world. If you're a single mom with 2 kids that earns $14,000 a year, and this is your largest paycheck per year, which on average is about $2,300, so if you make $14 grand a year, divide that, that's roughly $300 a week. This is their largest paycheck per year. So I learned how to be a good steward with other people's money. The third thing is how to build scale through standardized operating procedures. At Ladder Up, we have defined roles and responsibilities for every single person in the organization. Meaning we have greeters. Walk into a site, we have someone saying hello. Why do we do that? Walmart, remember greeters? You want people to feel welcome. We're doing the most intimate exercise you can do with someone. How much money you make, your social security number, your ITIN, your immigration status, you're divorced, in 45 minutes or less, we need to figure out everything we can about you that involves marital status, kids, you name it. But we have to build a relationship with you to get you to talk because we need trust. So we have defined roles for greeters, screeners. Screeners are the folks who kind of take the client intake form. We then have tax preparers. They're doing taxes. We have quality review. We then have e-filers. We've segregated and defined roles and responsibilities. So the third thing I learned building a nonprofit is how to scale things through standardized operating procedures. Those three things: one, how to motivate people without material incentive; two, how to build scale through standardized operating procedures; and three, being a good steward of money, have helped build a for-profit business. I started a business probably 10 years, about 10 years ago. So I've always, again, I'm sorry if I'm not making sense. Tell me to stay focused if I'm not. But I've always, again, wanted to be an entrepreneur on a nonprofit side and a for-profit side. For-profit side, I started at Arthur Andersen, went to business school. I went to Harvard Business School, majored in entrepreneurial finance, then went and worked at Goldman Sachs. After Goldman Sachs, then I went to a relative startup from a guy I knew there, and then I started my own holding company. I wanted to build my own version of a Berkshire Hathaway company, meaning buy, build, and hold. Started that business, grown it from scratch to 150 million plus in revenue. It's profitable, it's growing, and it's expanding. But I will tell you, I've learned more on the nonprofit side of things than on the for-profit side of things. Secondly, I've gained far more satisfaction from the nonprofit than the for-profit. I have two main things in life that I enjoy: work and family. And I've been singularly focusing on the two of those, work and family. So, and over the last 22, 23 years, I've missed about 7 Saturdays volunteering. I lived in Chicago, New York, and Boston. I've made it a part of my life. I don't look at it as, hey, I got to volunteer on Saturday, I got to volunteer on Tuesday night, or I got to volunteer on Thursday. Poor me, I've just worked a long day. The ability to serve somebody is a gift. You get more out of it than what you're helping with a family. There's dignity in service. There's dignity in how you treat someone else that doesn't do it. Most people will come into one of Ladder Up sites. We have 22, 23 sites in Chicago. We expanded into 12 cities outside of Chicago. We spun those off as independent 501c3s. But most people that are coming in aren't expecting to be treated, let's call it super well. They're thinking they're going into the DMV, the driver's motor vehicle, and they wait in line and they might get an answer. What we do is we have t-shirts, they're all branded, we have greeters to say hello, we sit down in teams, we ask them how they're doing, we try and get to know them. Hey, I have 2 kids, how old are your kids? What do your kids like to do? Because you have to develop a relationship, a trust. When we first started in the first 10 years, the 3 most common things people said is this free? Is this true? And is this legit? Why are you doing this? What's the catch? Nothing in the world is free. What are you getting at? So the free question was, well, I haven't paid taxes in the past. Is this a scam by the IRS to somehow get money from me that I owed? The true is, well, what are you doing this? Why are you doing this? What's in it for you? Why are you trying to help me? Legit. You're not going to take my information I give you. We have attorney-client privilege for all the clients we serve. That way, nothing can be used against them. Are you going to tell INS about, my child isn't here, right? Nothing you tell us can be used against you. It's all protected. And, we'll give you the best advice and we'll give you options. We'll tell you, look, hey, somebody might owe $16,000 and they're from Mexico. We'll say, here are your options. You can file and you can owe $16,000, or you can take this piece of paper and throw it away. It's your choice. And we give them options and choice. And just as if you were a client or something like that at a large organization, we give them the choice, let them choose what's right for them. And in some circumstances, it might be, hey, you might be better just not doing anything. We give them the options, let them choose. We're not here to say, hey, you must do this or you must do that. There's no obligation. It's voluntary compliance. That's part of the IRS. It's voluntary compliance. Want to be conscious of time. Do you have any 5 minutes? Any questions for me? Ask me anything.
Bob, you mentioned this housewife or gentleman who has a $2,300 refund coming
Yeah.
all of a sudden. Do you ever advise them what they should do with it?
Yeah, so we got into financial literacy maybe about 12 years ago. So we have a program for one to set up bank accounts, two to invest money. We actually looked at starting our own mutual fund with all kinds of security laws prohibiting us from doing that. We also do a budgeting where they can actually budget their money. The reality is most of the clients we have a negative net worth. Now that's not good necessarily, but where that prevents opportunity is on our LIFT. LIFT is Life Improving Financial Tools, our other side of the house of our nonprofit, because we can get kids money to go on to higher education as well as adults. So the reality about education, yes, it's expensive, right? What's this place cost? 65 grand a year? Something like that? It's about awareness and access. And the biggest issue for education is awareness and access, getting them money to do that. So the expected family contribution of an average family that we help is less than $500. So just because you're poor doesn't mean you're dumb, stupid, or you don't. Repeat, there is no correlation between income and intelligence. But we need to figure out how people that don't have the means, how they can afford it, and that's where we come in. Hopefully I answered your question. What else? Let me ask, well, come on, ask questions. Here's my advice to you guys. You guys are what years mostly? Juniors, seniors?
Some grad students.
Grad students? Sophomores? Notre Dame, I think, does a great job of graduating kids that get good jobs, that work at good organizations. What I would encourage you to do is take a few chances. That job at KPMG will be there if you take a year off. Trust me. They might say no, but it's not true. You can do a year of service. You can go work for a startup. You can work for a nonprofit. You will learn far more. Repeat, you will learn far more doing service than any for-profit job you can find in America. Why? Because a nonprofit has limited resources, which means they have to stretch you. They have to have you do 12 different jobs, not one job, right? If you're doing audit, you're doing bank reconciliation, send the thing out, check, confirm balances, do that. There's 5,000 people that can do that job, right? You get hit by a train, the next day there's somebody in that seat. My point is, take a chance, do something different. There is no risk at your age. There is no risk. The only risk is not taking that chance, doing something different, and really doing it. What else can I tell you?
Was there anything, Maine, that you took from working at Goldman that you applied to the nonprofit?
Yes. Yes, a couple things. I told this story earlier. I enjoyed that environment a lot. It was private partnership, it was hard charging, it was entrepreneurial, some of the smartest people you can meet in the world. What I learned there was I wanted to be on the other side of the table on the for-profit end of things. I didn't want to be on the client side, I wanted to build something on my own. So learned a lot to do that. You know, I like the challenge of both nonprofit and for-profit. I would probably go nuts if I just had my nonprofit, and I'd probably go nuts if I just had my for-profit. I need both. I'm ADD, so I need that tension to keep me sharp. What else? What am I saying? If I asked you what are the 3 takeaways that you're getting out of this talk, what are they?
Take risks.
Take risks, that's one, that's a good one. How about you? Go ahead.
There's dignity in service.
Damn right there is. What else? The scarf.
Just assist others in any way you can.
Okay. What else? How about you?
There shouldn't be a negative stigma attached to service, like, oh, I'm volunteering, like, this sucks. It should be, like, helping people more so, you know?
Yeah, and do you think there is?
I think in some sense there could be. So,
Yeah.
like, back in high school, you know, you had to do service hours. It was
Yeah.
kind of forced, but it shouldn't kind of be like that, you know?
Right.
Personal choice, but
Okay. Good. Why? I overstood my overview.
I have a question.
Yep.
So the way you pitched this to the partner was that it's because people don't know how to ask questions about their clients, but did you?
It's the best training business development you can do here at Arthur Andersen. I pitched it as an opportunity to teach our young professionals how to ask questions when they're at clients, because right now they keep their head down and they don't ask anything.
Did you pitch it differently when you were looking to fellow staff members to get volunteers?
You know, yes and no. So I pitched it, I knew 60% of the volunteers would be girls and 40% would be males, right? So you pitch the guys on, hey, it's tons of women out here on Saturday morning, great way to meet people. You pitch the ladies, hey, you know, some good guys out there, we're gonna do some good, you know what I mean? You gotta do the right audience. So, you know, I tailored my speech to the, you know, the partners. I had a different message, hey, this can be more community service. The younger folks, I mean, I'm telling you, I met some of the best friends through Ladder Up. I mean, did you have Mike Gallagher?
I did.
Okay, Mike Gallagher's done really well.
Wonderful guy.
You know, played football at Notre Dame. He was a volunteer. I mean, some of the best friends I've met have been through volunteering. So tailored my message to the audience, but the one thing I did was not take no as an answer. No was not acceptable. Go ahead.
So going back to the idea of using it as a development program
Yeah.
for Arthur Andersen, obviously you did good returning all that money.
Yeah.
Did you see a positive impact at Arthur Andersen? Do you think it did what you were pitching to that managing partner?
Yeah, I would argue all day long the volunteers and folks who volunteer tend to be better, more productive workers. No question. No question. You know, no question. Go ahead.
You said that you gained more out of working with a nonprofit, but what was the biggest struggle that you faced in like trying to start that company?
The nonprofit?
Yeah.
Well, you know, capital's always an issue when you're a nonprofit and it's free for services, right? So I say to our executive director, no money, no mission, no money, no mission. And the more we serve, the more money we got to raise to do this. So, you know, it's, you know, you got to train people, you got to feed people, you got to clothe people, you got to bus people. I mean, it's costly to do this. You know, we have a $5 or $6 million annual operating budget, and a lot of that's pro bono, but, you know, that's real money you got to raise. So capital's always an issue. But I don't let money get in the way of doing things too, though. So I don't want to, because there's a million reasons why you can't do something. Look, when we first started it, how did we get pencils? We went to the storage room. How did we get flyers? I got a bunch of assistants to make copies and, you know, do this. How did we get our t-shirts the first year? I went down and begged and pleaded with the person who ran like the promotionals and said, hey, can you do a t-shirt run for all these folks? So we were entrepreneurial, we were creative. I'm taking up too much time, but one last plug on Ken Milani here, Professor Milani. He's been doing this for 45 years, 46 years, same year I was born, basically. You know, having that type of heart and desire, guys, you don't find that too often in life, and let's give him a round of applause.
Turn it over to Rebecca here, okay?
Okay. Is there anything specific you want me to touch on?
Button there, push it up, yeah. There you go.
Is there anything specific you want me to touch on? Any questions off the bat? Or just talk about my experience?
Your experience with the program, yeah.
Okay. Well, hello everyone. My name's Rebecca, and I am a senior here. This is my second year doing the tax assistance program, and I've really enjoyed it. A lot of the things that Mr. Burke touched on resonated with me that applied to this program as well. The first of which, you know, is we live in a very, Notre Dame can be perceived as a very affluent bubble, so to speak. But this program has really forced me to look beyond, you know, the financial wealth that we see here at Notre Dame and into the greater South Bend area, and to recognize that there are a lot of struggling families, and that when you establish a personal connection with a family or an individual who, you know, doesn't make near the income that we're used to seeing, something that seems as measly as an $80 or $100 refund to an individual is very impactful for them. And to see, you know, last year there were tons of individuals that I prepared returns for, and they received a refund of that amount, or larger or smaller, and the elation on their face was just unprecedented, you know, and to a lot of us that doesn't seem like much, but it's this type of program that really opens your eyes, and you are forced to recognize that there are those out there who are struggling a lot more than a lot of us. And so that's just a great lesson to take into business, into our professional careers, and as we're dealing with clients that, you know, have large incomes, it's really important to still remember those that don't have as much. And like Mr. Burke said, I definitely feel a lot of pride in helping those that are less fortunate than myself.
For sure. Yeah, so I don't want to, I mean, I agree with everything that Rebecca said. I guess for context, yeah, this is my second year doing TAP 2. And it's been a great experience. I think the biggest thing for me is that with TAP, and I'm sure with anything else that's kind of like it, is when you're applying like specialized knowledge, in this case tax knowledge, to help people do something, or assisting people in some way with your specialized knowledge, that can be like really empowering and exciting, because you know that if you were not there, if you hadn't learned those things in your classes, if you hadn't, you know, put the time into like figure out how to do that stuff, that these people would not be able to accomplish whatever they're trying to accomplish. And it can be really gratifying, kind of just talking to these people and you know, knowing you're making that impact. I think my biggest example of that is my first ever return I did with TAP. It was pretty brutal. You're hoping, for everyone who's not accounting or something, like you're hoping the first day, like they come in, they have like maybe like one source of income, and then like maybe not even married, no kids, like just super easy. It did not happen like that at all. First they walk in, it's a couple, and they seem like, I mean, they're friendly and nice. We're talking to them, and we realize, okay, they're married. One of them just moved here from abroad. Okay, so they have some foreign income. They also have 6 kids. They have very little income, so they qualify for virtually every credit you could possibly think of. And before we knew it, it took us, I think, like 2.5 or 3 hours to get through the whole return. But they only made, I think, they only had like $11,000 of income before, and they had a ridiculous refund, like somewhere in the realm of $5,000 or $6,000. And it's just amazing to see the look on their face when they realize they just had like almost 50% more income granted to them that they were not expecting that day. And it can be incredible to know that your knowledge went toward that. So that's kind of my favorite TAP memory, and you know, just a good experience overall.
Okay, cool, this is on. I'm Stefan. I'm the student chairperson for the Tax Assistance Program this year. So this is my second year involved in the program. I really like what Rebecca said about getting involved in the community. If I wasn't involved in TAP, I don't think I would be very involved in the South Bend community. I had never gotten into, you know, the community and seen, you know, how varied the lives are of people in this community. I'd just been to like the Mishawaka Mall and a couple other, you know, Chick-fil-A's until now. But then, you know, the tax assistance program is awesome. Just helping people out. I kind of get a little competitive with it, doing tax returns. Like I love kind of every situation someone comes in with is different. So it's like a challenge to figure out what's going on. And then when you find like a big refund or something in there, and they, you know, get this great benefit that wouldn't have happened if you weren't there to help them. I don't know, it's awesome to have that feeling of that you've been helping them out. Even this past Saturday, so this past Saturday was our first session of the tax assistance program this year. The last group that was in there, I think we stayed a little half hour over because there was one big family left to do. And, you know, they have like their little girls running around all over the place, and then they got this giant, I think they got like $8,000 back, and it was awesome. Yeah, because, you know, it's just a huge sum of money for them to get all of a sudden. and I guess another story I had was last year. There's this time where it was like a grandma came in, and she was telling me I think she had like a part of her brain chopped off at some point, and I was like, holy cow, this is crazy. And she had like a granddaughter that was terminally ill. I was like, how are these, I'm just happy to help these people in any way I can. Like, I don't know how this grandmother would have filed her taxes if we weren't there to help her. So, I mean, it's really special the impact the tax assistance program can have on the community. And just, we just help out like 7 or 8 sessions a semester, but it's crazy the people you meet and how much good you can do.
Let me take it here for a second, okay? Give you a chance to think of some questions for these folks. Thanks, Ben. Yeah, oops. As Bob pointed out, I've been doing this since 1972. And people ask me why I'm still doing this, okay? I said I was going to do it until the Cubs won the World Series, and they did that in 2016, and I continue doing it. Well, one of the reasons I do it is payback, okay? I'm a blue-collar kid. My dad worked in a foundry, my mom worked in a factory. Later on, they bought a pizzeria, and then they ran a tavern, okay? And so I basically have a payback, and I can't pay back the people who kind of helped me get through college, but we can pay back people that are kind of like the folks who helped me get through college. The second thing is that as a professional, we could go work in a soup kitchen. I've done that, okay? And that's fine. But as an accountant, or a marketing major, or a finance major, or a management major, you've got a skill that the not-for-profit world needs. So you walk in and say, you know what, I can help you, as Bob pointed out, with financial literacy. I can help you do your tax return. And then again, that is a key factor. Let me tell you one story. This happened in Mishawaka about 7, 8 years ago. I'm doing a tax return for a lady who's blind. She's got 3 kids. So I do her tax return and I tell her, you're going to get a refund of over $3,000. And she asked me, are you God? I said, no. I'm just the CPA doing tax returns for people like yourself, ma'am. For many of these people, this is their, as Bob pointed out, their biggest payday. You've got somebody making $16,000, they got 2 or 3 children, and you tell them that their refund is going to be $5,000. Now, with the typical work year at 2,000 hours, that's like a $2.50 raise that's non-taxable. So what we're really doing is we are, as Bob pointed out again, we really have to climb into their lives. Within 5 or 10 minutes, I know about their age, their marital status, how many kids they have. I can take a look at their interest income and figure out how much money they have in the bank. They're giving me all that information because without that information, we can't do the tax return. So I'm going to turn it back to the panel here and see if we have any questions from the group here. And I think we'll have Bob might say a couple more things here as well, okay?
My question is more towards you guys. You guys, how many of you guys are graduating? How many of you guys are considering doing sort of your service or work for a nonprofit? So 1 out of, what's the barrier?
Student loans. Pay back these student loans, probably.
Okay. Let me ask a different question. If you didn't have student loans to pay back, how many would be at a nonprofit or a startup or do something different? Meaning non-trajectory, go work for a Big 4 firm, go work for Procter & Gamble, go work for, where's the top 10 jobs coming out of Notre Dame? How about you in the red hat? No, you, yeah.
Well, I was gonna say, I think that there's like a.
What are you doing next year? What are
I'm
you?
a sophomore this year.
Okay, good. You got time. I can save you.
But I was gonna say, I think there's like a stigma against it because I think
Why?
a lot of people don't think that there's enough merit in it. Not necessarily me, but there's a lot of people in this room that are afraid to say that it just
seems better, I guess, to follow that.
And is the university giving you enough support to do that? No, that's good. What do you think they can do?
Educate us more about it. I don't think we learn enough about it.
I would agree. I would agree. Have you sat down with anybody that has, like, I would encourage the students to, schedule a meeting, not just with the dean, but go straight to the Jenkins office. Yeah, if you want to be heard, you have to go to the highest levels, and in a thoughtful, methodical way. But I think if you said, here are 3 things that would make service more dignified as a post-career option, here's what we need, like loan forgiveness. Maybe part of the endowment could be used for people who I went to Harvard Business School, and Harvard had an option where if you went to a nonprofit, your loan got forgiven. What are the options? What are the barriers from people doing this, and how do we address them? But I would encourage you guys to take some of that and say, hey, we need to do something about this, because, this can't be, we're on to something if the stigma exists, and look at the numbers. Go ahead.
Do you think garnering up the experience first by going to the professional world, like doing tax returns, getting that experience that you need
No.
to be able to be effective?
No. So I didn't know one singular thing when I started our nonprofit. Okay, so 80% of all businesses go out of business within 1 year, and I think it's like 90 within 5 years. Well, we've been in business 22 years, and we've never had a deficit in our nonprofit, and we've grown. We've had a compound annual growth rate of 34% per year for the last 23 years. If we were a stock, we'd be a multi-billion-dollar company, right? 34% compound CAGR rate. So I think there's plenty of reasons why not to do a nonprofit. I have student loans. There's not enough societal acceptance, but I think you have to take, I think there's no time like now, because there's always a reason. I get married, now I got kids, and I just changed cities, and I'm in a new city. So I would, I would argue that nonprofits have more to teach for-profits than for-profits have to teach nonprofits. So if you have a for-profit, you can get a line of credit, you can do, you can get a bank loan, you can get equity investors. A nonprofit, it's really hard, really, really hard. Go ahead.
But in a way, with accumulating that experience, don't you think that adds some credibility in order to generate more success for a nonprofit? So as you were saying earlier, capital is the biggest issue with not-for-profits. So say on my resume you see that I work for a Big 4 accounting firm, don't you think that adds more credibility than for people who would want to invest? Don't you think that helps a little bit?
Maybe. I would argue this. You have enough credibility already. You graduated from Notre Dame. You're in the Master's of Science, right? You got a Master's. I would argue you already have enough credibility.
But I'm also 22 years old.
I was 22.
Yeah, but I've had summer jobs, which is great.
So did I.
Alright, well, with all due respect to you, because I think what you're doing is incredible. I don't know how.
So I think there's plenty of reasons why people can say why they're too young, why they're too inexperienced. How old was Mark Zuckerberg when he started Facebook?
Yeah, but how many Mark Zuckerbergs are there?
There are not enough. So I would argue there's not enough in the nonprofit world, right? So is there enough need to be solved? Yes. Is there a shortage of poor people? No. Is there a shortage of societal ills? No. So I kind of look at this and say, yeah, you could spend the next 10 years and go do this and go do that, and you might be more qualified, but I'd argue the longer you wait to do it, the less likely you are to do it. So I think there's no time like now. But again, we got to get structural issues solved in terms of, some of these things. And I'd join forces with you guys on some of this stuff, because I think it's powerful that we have the desire to do it, but we don't have enough folks doing it. Go ahead. You raise your hand.
I was going to say, I just don't feel like that we have enough experience actually gaining that knowledge ourselves. Like, it would be good to go out and go to like a Big 4 company and be able to have that experience, but we don't even have those tools leaving here.
So what tools would they be? Like, be more specific. What are you majoring
Just
into?
like practical knowledge, marketing,
Where do you live?
Welshman.
No, where in real life?
That's the Notre Dame thing. Louisville, Kentucky.
Okay.
Great for nonprofit too.
Yeah. So what tools would you need? I'm still trying to understand
I
that.
don't know, just like a.
Is that confidence or tools?
Hands-on knowledge.
I think it's confidence more than tools, because I think you guys got the what you.
I think a lot of us have the confidence.
Okay. Go ahead.
I have a question. So it sounds like when you started your not-for-profit, you were receiving a paycheck from Anderson.
Yep.
I know a lot of us in this room have become accustomed to a certain lifestyle, and going to start a not-for-profit, you're gonna have a lot lower salaries than if you go to CY or Deloitte.
Yeah.
So they're not gonna pay our salaries, but you were getting a full salary.
Yeah, good point. Okay, so I hear where you're going. So I've started 2 businesses. So the second business I started for profit, and I was married, had a baby, and had a baby on the way, right? So I had a nice job, all that wonderful stuff. And I said to my wife, I said, you're used to drinking Amstel Light, now we're going to drink some Miller Lights. Okay, translation, you got to adjust your lifestyle collectively. So, okay, what's the big 4 paying? 60 grand a year, is that the starting salary?
Mm-hmm. It's about that.
You guys allowed to say that?
Not working.
Okay, who is that the
It's 55.
55 to 60? Okay. So what happens if you said you're going to take a year sabbatical and you got a job at a nonprofit? So I have a nonprofit. I would hire somebody out of Notre Dame. Would I pay him 57? I don't know. It'd probably be a little less, but there's not a big gap difference. I would argue that the difference between working and making 60 grand at a big 4 firm and making 40 grand at a nonprofit, you can have 3 roommates and live in a 1,100 square foot place. You can live on 40 grand a year pretty comfortably. You follow me? So some of it is you may not have the coolest clothes, the latest iPhone, and all the wonderful trappings of that. But I would argue that's true too in the business world, because so many people, they move up the corporate ladder and they're like, well, I'd like to do something entrepreneurial. I'd like to start a business. I'd like to do something. And then they're like, well, I have this high mortgage and, we drive nice cars and all this stuff, and they don't have enough money put away. So I wouldn't discount the opportunity you could do on that. But I hear you. It's difficult. I think there's structural issues that I think we as a society could do. Loan deferment or loan forgiveness. Promoting the dignity of doing these types of jobs in the social service sector, because I think there's a desire to do it, and there's some barriers or challenges to get it done, but those can be solved. No different. Do you follow me? Meaning, the capital markets have worked for for-profits, right? Meaning you can write a business plan, you can get venture capital, you can hire a team, you can go and grow the business. I would argue that we have to do a better job as society in the nonprofit sector to create that, because I think there's more demand for those services than there is in for-profit. How many apps can we create, right? How many apps are available on the iPhone store today? Thousands? You can get an app to lose weight and there's 50 of them, right? I mean, at some point, how many apps do we have to try and figure out how to bring sustainable farming and food to the inner city, right? Do we have any apps for that? Probably not many, right? Is there more of a need for apps for weight loss? You know what I'm saying? Am I making sense?
I think in a lot of social circles, the bigger issue here is that, so we'll go into these these safe jobs after college, because at least in social circles that I've been in, is that you think that, in 5-6 years, if you work really hard, if you do something you're really good at, you'll be able to make 300 grand. And if you're making 300 grand, you might be able to put that money toward, you'll be able to have a larger impact by donating that money toward causes that you care about than if you were to work in a nonprofit right out of college. I think that's a general prevailing thought. is that you could have a larger impact if you make a lot of money doing something you're good at and then donate it later.
I hear you, but I don't think that's the reason why we should accept it. That might be the prevailing thought process, but I think at Notre Dame we got to come up with a better solution. And that might be what's the status quo, but I think we need to come up with a way to make it more attractive. Because I would also argue all day long that you're going to derive more satisfaction from having an impact. And you can have an impact at work, trust me, there's no question of that, but a societal impact.
So kind of switching gears, you said you're running 2 businesses right now. You said work and family are the most important.
Those are my only 2 hobbies.
Yeah, but how do you...
I'm not in any fantasy football leagues. I don't, I mean, I'm focused. Like, I got work and I got family. And to me, that's what has enabled me to get to where I'm at.
I guess that answers my question. How do you keep them balanced? But
So, I don't, so let me say something that may not be, I don't, if you're going to really try and hit it, you know what I mean by hit it? If you're going to try and solve a societal problem, or so on the nonprofit level, you're not going to have a ton of balance because it isn't that easy to solve. It takes a lot of hard work and a lot of effort. I mean, Ken, when you got a day job here as a professor, right?
Right.
Okay, I mean, tax assistance is after hours, right?
Exactly.
So, I mean, is that balanced? Maybe not, but I would say it's only unbalanced if you don't drive. I don't look at that as a job. You follow me? Like, I've never felt like I've had a job as long as I've been in business, nonprofit and for-profit. I'm here today. I canceled all my management meetings. We have 5 different businesses and for-profit. So I have meetings from 7:30 in the morning till 6 on every Monday. Each division unit, this, that. I canceled them all. Why? I'd rather be here. I went to lunch with Jamie O'Brien. I was at your master's class. I'm going to dinner with Ken. Tried to convince him to go to a different restaurant. Didn't work. But to me, if you're doing something you're passionate about, you don't look at it as a job. Versus, I think if you're punching the clock and you got one of these traditional jobs, I think there's only so much satisfaction you can get.
Let's maybe let that be the last word. I don't think we could really end on a better note. So Ken gave you the hook here. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Brian Levy, and along with Ken and some others have responsibility for this week. Let's thank our panel.